chapter 2 of Ethics of the Fathers. Let's look at the first statement in that chapter. Now, there's many substatements. We're not going to do all of them because it's long. I'm just going to highlight a few of the substatements in chapter 2, the first Mishnah, the first statement. This was all said by Reb Yehuda Hanassi, Judah the Prince, who was really the leader of that generation that compiled the Mishnah. As we've said, Mishnah, Ethics of the Fathers as part of Mishnah, is the first writing down, the first official recording of what until then was only oral. Now the generation is getting weaker. We've got tremendous Roman persecution. And if we don't write it down, we're going to lose it. So that is why this was written down, again, under the direction of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, Judah the Prince, the head of that generation, who is also the voice, the author of this statement that we're looking at right now. Now, we're not going to do all of the sub-concepts, just a few I'm picking out. One, the second thing he said in this, which I thought was very relevant, be as careful in the performance of a seemingly minor commandment as a major one, for you do not know the reward given for the commandments. So the injunction there is that sometimes we create like a ladder, like a hierarchy of, even in God's service, what we think is, oh, that I should do. Well, it's not so important. No, that's really important. And he's telling us, you have no clue. You don't know what's important to God. You don't know what's minor to God. You could do in your eyes, very small act, and God could be so moved, touched, and helped by it. It could be amazingly significant. So the basic message here is, whatever we're doing, recognize it's very important. And we should never make small something we're doing, because we're not looking at things with God's eyes. And it's very possible everything we're making small, God makes huge, which really gives a lot of weight to all the good we do. We do so much good that it's just a little this, it's just a little that. And we forget how valuable this is to God. So if we could try to imagine, and we can't, how valuable it is to God, we could be more scrupulous, more precise, more careful, more attentive to every little detail we're doing. You know, it says about the first of the tribes, Reuven, that when the brothers wanted to do something to Joseph because they felt he was trying to cause them all to be killed in this world or in the next world, physically or spiritually. And when he came upon them following the directives of his father, and they were going to kill him. And Reuven was like, I'm the oldest one. At the end of the day, I'm going to get the blame for this. And I don't know if it's right to kill him. I just imagine the pain our father would have if Joseph, his most beloved son, is actually killed. Like, I can't do that to him. And he had a plan and he had a plot. And he was like, you know what? I'll tell the brothers to put him in the pit. And when everyone leaves, I'll come to the pit. I'll pull him out. I'll bring him back to his father. Because I just know it's not worth it. It's not right. Now we're in the heat of the moment and we think we're all right, but we're probably not right. And could you imagine the pain of father? This was his plan. So he told the brothers, wash our hands, get dirty with his blood. We'll throw him in the pit. He'll die. He'll die from starvation. He'll die from thirst before he dies from starvation, let alone there were snakes and scorpions in the bottom of the pit, which none of them even realized. He's going to die from natural causes. He'll die anyway. Why should our hands get full of his blood? Brothers said, fine. And they threw him in the pit. And then Reuven had to leave. For different commentators give different reasons why he left. And by the time he came back, the brothers, under the guidance of Judah, of Yehuda, decided, why should we kill him? Let's sell him as a slave. That way we still don't have this fear that he's going to get rid of us physically, spiritually, or both. And again, we're not removing his life. Like, we don't want to remove his life. If he's a slave, he won't harm us and he could still live. So the brothers, trying to choose a better road, sold him as a slave. When Reuben came back, he was like, oh my gosh, I was planning on returning him to father, which never happened. And in the verse discussing this whole concept, it's written that when Reuven told the brothers, let's throw him in the pit, they'll wash our hands, get dirty with his blood. The verse says it's written in order to return him to his father. Like, that was his good intention. And the verse honors that good intention. And our sages say If Reuven had known how the verse would record his good intention, which never materialized, he would have, at that moment, in front of all the brothers, picked up Joseph, who was 17, put him on his shoulders, and marched him all the way back to his father. Meaning, if Reuven had realized how precious it was to God that he was trying to save his brother, if he had only realized, he would have saved him. But he didn't realize, and he didn't. So it's just a very strong example of like, we have no clue how much God appreciates what we're doing. We have no clue. And if we looked at everything with that set of eyes, wow, imagine how happy God is that I'm being respectful to my parents. Imagine how happy God is that I'm so honest in my interpersonal dealings. Imagine how happy God is that I pray to him daily. Imagine how happy God is that I'm giving this charity. Imagine how happy God is that I'm dressing modestly. Imagine how happy God is that I'm refraining from gossip. If we just had this refrain, because it's true, wow, we would probably be so much more careful. And all this is true. God very, very, very much appreciates it. So that was one that I thought very relevant statement in this first Mishnah. The second thing he says after that, which is really the third thing in the flow of the Mishnah, consider the loss incurred in the performance of the commandment against the reward earned for the observance of the commandment, and the gain, so to speak, derived from a sin against the loss that will follow. So continuing this theme of probably more precious than we realize is our service to God, and of course it goes in both directions, Judah the Prince advises us, if we want to live a godly life, we should look at what we're supposed to do and say, why am I not doing what I should do? Oh, well, there's a loss. What's the loss? Maybe it's more expensive if I have to buy modest clothing. Maybe it's more uncomfortable for me if I can't go out and eat with my friends at, the local McDonald's for that probably stun-gunned meat. Maybe I really want to, indulge in this gossip or dishonesty. So when we're thinking of what God wants from us, and we might say, you see the loss, so to speak. You see what you're losing by serving God. And Judah the Prince advises, look at what you're losing and look at what you're gaining. Every time you serve God, there's an eternal bond that's created between you and God. Forever. Eternal. Forever. Every time. Every time you do what he wants or hold back from what he doesn't want, you and him are connecting forever. So you're like, yeah, if I do this, whatever, it's summer, I'm hot in all my clothing, that's my loss. And the gain? Eternal connection to God. All the blessings that come from fulfilling his will. All the strengthening of my spiritual energies that come from being one with him. And conversely, he says, when you're doing something wrong, most of us don't contemplate, we just do. But if you would contemplate doing something wrong, what's the gain and what's the loss? Oh, the gain is all the pleasure, all the fun, all the attention, whatever the wrong thing is you want to do. How much more money I'll make if I... And what's the loss? The loss is that damage to the relationship between you and God. The loss is the negativity you bring in the world every time you transgress God's will. So he says, if you think of the loss doing good versus the gain doing good, if you think of the gain you think you're getting from doing wrong versus the loss from doing wrong, if we thought like this, we'd be really, really, really godly. Anyone can think of some situations they're in that they struggle doing God's will, and would this thought that he's saying either of the two, meaning what I said before, that sometimes we think, it's a little thing, and realize nothing by God is little, and how valuable it is. And or what we're saying now, what I gain from doing God's will versus my loss for doing God's will, or to prevent from doing wrong, what I think my gains are from doing something wrong versus the loss of doing something wrong. Someone take these concepts and apply it, so to speak, in real time to their own struggles in their relationship with God and see how this could help them? Does this translate to you? Well, if it doesn't, I'll give you another one. This is the next thing he says. This is all a continuum. It's all in the same mission. It's all going in the same direction, trying to help us and give us thoughts that will inspire us to do right. So he says, reflect upon three things and you will not come to sin. That's good. There's an eye that sees. There's an ear that hears, and all your deeds are recorded. He said, if you just think about those three things, you should live a really good, godly life. There's an eye that sees. You know, nowadays in the 21st century, this is very, very simple for us to imagine. Obviously, when Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, when Judah the Prince said this 1900 years ago, the vision of the eye seeing and the ear hearing and all their deeds being recorded was, you know, that was a little bit of a stretch for people to fathom that. For us, it's very simple. You know, we have no problem envisioning the eye constantly seeing everything we're doing. It probably is happening. The ear hearing everything we're doing and everything being recorded. Yeah, like that makes perfect sense to us. In our world, that's a very easy transfer. So he's saying, if you understand that, if you understand that God's always looking at you, God loves you so much, cares about you so much, you are so important to him, and he's looking at every single thing you do. He's listening to every single thing you do, and everything's being recorded. And for some people, they could be like, wow, I really want to serve God properly. I really want to give him pleasure. I really want to give him, as we say in the Jewish lexicon, nachas, joy, pleasure in his progeny, in us. He's watching. Why is he watching so much? Why is he listening so much? Because we're so important. Because he cares about us so much. Because we make such a difference. We're so impactful. All that we do, that we really make a difference. And it's really significant to him, every little thing we do right. And conversely, every little thing we do wrong. Every little thing we do right is so beautiful and important and significant and helps God. And every little thing we do wrong harms God. And that's why he's really watching and listening and recording, because we have such power. He gave us the power. How do we have power? Who are we? We're creations. True, we are creations. But God empowered us to be very, very, very big in his world. We're very, very big in his world. So we have a lot of power because he gave us a lot of power. He trusts us with a lot of power. And when we think about that, the enormous power we have, because he really trusts us with all this power, it could also help. So I said here three things. It was really four, but I skipped the first one. The first one of the three I said was, understand nothing's little, right? No, if you think, oh, that's just a small thing. Well, we don't know how big it is to God. The second advice of his was, think of the, like your balance sheet, gain-loss ratios, the loss in doing God's will versus the gain in doing God's will, the gain in transgressing God's will versus the loss in transgressing God's will. That was the second of the three I said. And the third was, keep these three things in mind. There's an eye that sees, there's an ear that hears, all is being recorded. Are any of these three more impactful to you? Any of these ideas you could think of practically that would really help you stay committed and connected and constantly growing and moving in your service to God?
I had an opportunity yesterday. We had some roofers working on a house, and the roof looked beautiful when they were finished. And a part of me wanted to go out and tell them how beautiful it looked, and then I didn't. And I've been contemplating, it was a missed opportunity. I mean, it could have really meant a lot to them because they worked so hard in the heat, and I didn't see any of them take any breaks. And I just thought, oh, I missed an opportunity. I should have pushed myself harder to go outside.
Yeah, I know what you're
and
saying. I
talk to them.
sometimes have those feelings also in both directions, like, oh, why did I say that stupid
Yeah.
comment? Or,
Oh,
oh, I could have done something good, but I just let it slip through my fingers because it was just a little thing. And I'm turn around and then the opportunities got exactly like this type of situation. You have a worker and, oh, I should share with him about God. And then by the time I pull myself together and get out a card and, oh, they left.
I
You
know. It's
know,
like it is a missed opportunity.
yes, I've experienced those. And I guess the best reflection from a missed opportunity is next time I don't want to miss one again. So
Hmm.
next time
Right,
I'll be
right.
ready, I'll be poised, I'll push myself, I'll be, because I remember what I feel like now. Like, why did
Hmm.
I why was I a little faster? Why wasn't I a little more committed? Why didn't I push myself? Why was I more
Hopefully, I've
focused?
learned. Yeah, hopefully, I've learned from it, so I don't hesitate the next time.
Yes. Yes, I totally hear you. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on this? Okay, so let's move on to Mishnah number 4. This was the first one. We're skipping 2 and 3. We're going to go to 4. So again, there's a number of substatements in Mishnah 4. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm jumping to the middle. These are statements by Hillel the elder. Hillel was one of the greatest of the sages of this time, very famous, many stories about him. So he would say, don't separate yourself from the community. Do not be sure of yourself until the day you die. Do not condemn your fellow man until you've been in his place. I'm going to skip the next one. And then the last one, don't say, when I have free time, I'll study, because maybe you'll never have free time. So I just gave you 4 of his statements. We're going to review them now. Don't separate yourself from the community. Now, for Noahides, the idea of community is a little different than for Jewish people, because obviously Jewish people are very much entrenched in community. That's a big strength of the Jewish community, is that we need community and we have community, and that's something that always surrounds us. And for Noahide, it might be the virtual community of Noahides, it might be the community of this class, or it might be your own community in your own neighborhoods. Do you understand why it's a virtue to be part of a community? It says, don't separate yourself from the community. Do you understand that virtue? Does that make sense to you? Let's look at it as the community of Noahides. Have any of you felt that you've gained strength in your own personal service of God, being on this class and having a virtual community of people you might only know through this class? Does this help you in any way? Has this helped you in any way?
I think it's helped me in not feeling so alone in this walk, and learning together to be able to see things and hearing other people's thoughts in what we're learning here in life experience and that.
I agree with you, Linda. I feel so strongly that, the first thing you said really struck me very deeply. Linda said, not as lonely in this walk. And that's actually was my feeling when I started this class many years ago, that it must be so lonely for so many Noahides. Because again, Jewish people, if you're an Orthodox Jew, you got to live with other Orthodox Jews. That's the only way to make it, because there's so many accoutrements of Orthodox life we need that we're only going to have if we're near other Orthodox people. So it's like not an option. But for many Noahides, they're the only Noahide in their area. And it's lonely. And it's hard for a human being to be alone. And that's a tremendous gift of being in the 21st century, that even though in Kansas and in Vancouver and all over Alabama, wherever you're all from, Colorado, you're all from different places, but you have a virtual community. And community is very important for a human being. It gives us a lot of strength. Exactly as Linda said, when we're hearing everyone's voices, I love hearing other people's voice besides my own. When we're hearing everyone's voices and we're hearing their experiences and we're comparing in our own head, my journey, her journey, my journey, her challenges, my challenges. Oh, I used to do that. Oh, I haven't had that experience yet. Oh, when I do, I'll remember. Oh, I did. And this is how she handled it versus I handle it. All of this helps us grow. And as Linda said, helps us feel not so alone and helps us have a greater strength. There is a strength in feeling there are other people on this journey as well. So definitely, I hope everyone, in whatever way they can, for some of you, it might be physical, For some of you, obviously, you have a connection to the Jewish community near where you live, or the Chabad house where you live, which obviously also can be a very embracive community, or other Jews where you are that could be a very embracive community, or your whole community is virtual, online. But take strength in community, because community is very strengthening. So that was the first thing he said here that we focused on. Do not be sure of yourself until the day you die. That is a very famous dictum of his. And what it's basically saying is exactly what it's saying, that sometimes we can feel, oh, I'm good. Got this down pat. Know how to be a Noahide. I've done it enough. No stretch. I'm good. And then we sort of stop pushing. And then we stop growing. And then we start falling. Meaning human beings are never stationary. We're always going up or down or up or down or up or down, sometimes several times a day. So what Hillel the elder is saying is, don't trust yourself. Don't start coasting. Don't coast comfortable relying on, I'm good. I know this. I've been doing this. I'm comfortable with this. Comfortable is not the best position to be in terms of serving God. You want to feel good, but you want a little bit of like a push, not a negative pressure, but a positive pushing forward to get closer and closer and closer. And there's a very famous story that relates to this dictum of his, of seemingly a very great person who was very holy. There's two different versions in the Talmud. Some say for 40 years and some say for 80 years. At the end of his life, the last year of his life, after serving God for either 40 or 80 years, he messed up completely. Big time. Really bad. And he's brought as an example to support this statement of Hillel that no matter how good you are, if you have 40 years of serving God on your back or 80 years of serving God, as part of your muscles, you never know. We can always fall flat on our face. We can always be tempted. We can always struggle. Sometimes you can look at yourself in the other direction and say, like, I wish I knew this earlier. I wish I had found this out when I was younger. I wish I knew this when I was raising my kids. Like all these types of I wish statements. And on the other hand, whenever you're exposed is exactly when God is giving you this gift, and then just keep walking with it and never get too confident that I got this, so I can not focus on it so much because I got this. None of us got this. We all are works in progress. And that's why we keep working, and trust God that he's helping us. Do not condemn your fellow man until you've stood in his place. This is also a very, very famous dictum of Hillel, the elder. Do not condemn your fellow man until you stood in his place. And we discussed, I believe last week, maybe even, the idea of not judging someone. So this is a similar theme to this idea of not judging. His point, what he's saying is, if you're not in his place, you don't know. And the first leader of Chabad, who we refer to as the Alter Rebbe, in his seminal work, the Tanya, discusses this concept. Do not judge a man until you're in his place. And he explains that there's two types of places that we could refer to, and they're both valid. One is his physical place, and one is his spiritual place. What he means by his physical place is, if you look at someone else and you're like, I can't believe they would act that way, but you're not in their place. You weren't raised the way they were. Maybe they didn't have the same advantages as you. Maybe currently they have a lot of stresses in their life, relationship stresses, emotional stresses, financial stresses that you don't have. Maybe they grew up on a street corner and they're still hanging out on the street corners. You're not in their place, so you can't understand why they would act the way they do. Sometimes people do things that are, we could say, cruel, selfish, thoughtless, mean. And it's very easy to judge them as being cruel, thoughtless, selfish, and mean, but we're not in their place. We don't understand their past. We don't understand their traumas. We don't understand what they're currently struggling with. It doesn't excuse the act. No one's allowed to be mean and cruel and vindictive and abusive because they suffered. No, that's not a pass by God. We're not allowed to do all of these things because we've been through hard stuff. So it's not excusing what the other person's doing, but it's removing our ability to judge them. I'm not in their place. I don't know what they've been through. I don't know what they're going through. So I just leave it. Try to protect yourself. This is a harmful person. Give space, protection, but don't judge them because you don't know. You're not in their place. And then the Alter Rebbe, which is how we refer to the first leader of Chabad, Reb Shir Zalman of Liadi, Admor HaZaken in Hebrew, he says, and how much more so do you not know their spiritual place? Which he explains means every one of us has different fires of temptation inside of us. And some of us have literally like commercial ovens burning with desire. You know, all of us have different passions. And some people's passions are lower level. Some of the passions are bigger. Obviously, the more we indulge in our passions, the more they grow. So you could have been born with a very mild, meek, sheep-like passion in negative directions, but you kept feeding it. So right now you've got a lion inside of you. That's very possible. But someone else could be born with like literally commercial ovens of fires pulling at them in the wrong direction. So when you're looking at someone, you're like, why in the world would anyone behave that way? Well, you have no clue because you're not in their place. Not only did you never experience what they've experienced in the physical arena, you don't know what they're going through in the spiritual arena. You don't know what fires are burning inside of them. You have no clue. We could look at someone and we could say, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And we don't know how much pleasure they're giving God because we're not in their place. Now, obviously, that doesn't excuse a transgression, but that's between them and God. That's nothing to do with me. Someone could be transgressing, but also giving God a lot of pleasure for the good they're doing. And what I want to focus on is how much pleasure they're giving God for the good they're doing. So when we're looking at someone else, we have no clue. We have no clue how hard it is because of their place. We have no clue what inner fires are making it so hard for them. And therefore, we have no clue how much pleasure their service is giving to God. Even if we, the judges on the outside, see the flaws in their service, but we don't see how much pleasure their service is giving God. And we obviously can look at a lot of people in our life and look at them far more kindly, look at them far more sensitively if we keep this in mind. I have no clue. I don't know their physical place, past, current. I don't know what's going on inside them, their spiritual place. So no clue. Maybe they're giving God a lot of pleasure. I don't know. Any of you can see how this concept could be helpful to you in relating to some of the more challenging people in your life?
I'm not sure that it's when you were talking about that, I was relating to something of my own that I had trouble with. In 97, I had a serious injury that created problems in my spine from my neck down to below my waist. Since then, I cannot wear a wig or a hat or scarf because of the pain that the pinched nerve at the base of my skull happens. And there's times that I cannot have something around up near my neck because of the transfer of pain. And so I have to wear something that is more down, even though when I was younger, even I wanted to be covered. And it kind of helped me understand that I can try, but I have to work within the limitations of what my body will allow me to do now.
True.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely true. Anyone else? Well, the last statement he said, do not say when I will have free time, I will study, because maybe you'll never have free times. So I would imagine we all can relate to that. Very, very practical. And it's so true for so many things. We don't only have to put it for studying. There's a lot of things God wants from us. And we could say, when I have time, I will fill in the blank. God says, really? Really? You think life is going to suddenly give you free time? Or to put it a different way, if it's important to you, you can find the time, you can make the time, you can create the time, you can carve out the time. And if it's not important enough to carve out that time, you'll never have time. I was speaking to someone last week about, some concept of not wasting time based on something in the Torah portion of last week. And she was saying like, oh my gosh, talking about how much time people waste on their phones. And she was saying how, it's true. Like, how long does it take her to pray to God? And like, she struggles so hard to push herself to pray. And like, look how much time she's spending on her phone. And if she could just give that time to God, she could pray and do lots of good things. And it's true for all of us. Obviously, it's also true to be careful not to waste time on your phone or any other device or any other way you waste time. But if you hear that voice in your brain, when I have time, I will do whatever good deed it is you're talking about, grab yourself and do it now. Because what does that mean when I will have time? And of course, none of us know how much time any of us have. So when is the time? The time is now. The time to do it is now. The time to take advantage is now. The time to serve God is now. But I don't have time. You prioritize, you make time. And it's true for every pursuit. Some people could exercise regularly every day. And you're like, oh my gosh, how do they have the time for that? Someone could take a long, mile-long, 2-mile, 5-mile walk every day. Oh my gosh, how does she have the time for that? Someone could talk to her mother and sister and daughter every day for half an hour. Oh my gosh, how does she have the time for that? And the answer to all those questions is, what's important to you, you have the time for. What's your priority, you have the time for. So if God is your priority, you have the time. That doesn't mean it's easy to have the time. That means you discipline yourself that that's what you do, and you make life work around those time constraints, those time demands, those time pressures. Like we all know the famous story of what do you put in the bucket first? How does it contain all the things you need to do? And you put in what's important first. That happens, and then everything else fits around it. So if serving God is a priority, I put it in my bucket first. I prioritize that, and everything else will or won't work around that service of God. And that's how you have the time. The next Mishnah, that was all in 4. Now we're going to 5. Same voice, Hillel the elder, very, very, very significant sage of this time period, very significant sage. Really, we're looking at all of Jewish history, one of the most significant sages. He used to say, a boor cannot be God-fearing, cannot be sin-fearing, to be more accurate. An ignorant person cannot be a chassid meaning going beyond the letter of the law. A bashful person can't learn. A short-tempered person can't teach. If someone's very involved in their trade, they can't become a scholar. And in a place where there's no men, strive to be a man. So I know we don't have that much time left. It was 6 points. I'm going to encapsulate them briefly, but I think they all have a lot of points. If someone is coarse, it's very hard to be God and sin-fearing, because that coarseness detaches you from the natural feeling of fear of God. Meaning, a person can know God doesn't let, know this is wrong, know this might be wrong in the eyes of man and God, but know that God really doesn't approve, and you know it, you're aware of it, but you don't feel anything because of that. And that comes from the way you've made more coarse or more crass your own animal instincts. Meaning, as I said before, we're all born. Some of us are born with very docile fires, and some are born with really aggressive ones. But as we live life, we can take even a very docile animal inside and make it worse and worse and worse, and more aggressive and more demanding by giving into it. Like, think of a child, right? The more you give in, the more the child wants. Oh, I'll pacify the child. Doesn't work that way. Just like America tries throwing money at terrorists or Iran, and then they'll be quiet. It doesn't work that way. That's not human nature. So the more we indulge in our baser desires, the more we just don't feel that sense of God, that being aware that he doesn't want this. I'm aware, but whatever. It doesn't affect me. And that's what he means. A boor can't be sin-fearing. You could be aware that it's a sin. You could be aware this is a transgression. You could be aware God doesn't want this, but you don't feel it. You're aware of it, but you're not feeling it. So you're not changing. That was the first point he said. An ignorant person can't go beyond the letter of the laws. In general, if we want to serve God, we have to be reasonably knowledgeable of what God wants from us. And the more we know, the more we're like, it like opens up the vistas of our mind, like, wow, God wants that. And God cares about that. And the more you learn about God, the more God becomes more and more and more real. And you're more and more inspired to serve. So part of being a devoted Noahide is to keep up the learning. Because the more you have the learning, the more you can have this deeper and deeper connection to God. Like, oh, it doesn't take that much to be a Noahide. Well, in a sense, yes. In a sense, no. It depends what type of Noahide you want to be. Third point, he said, the bashful person cannot learn. Well, we all understand what that means. What he's saying is, if you're in a class right now, my virtual class, and you're not understanding something, but you don't want to ask because, like, I mean, everyone else must understand because no one else is asking. Well, he says, you're not going to learn that way. And it's so true. I can think of so many times I'm a teacher. So many times, someone will ask a question and then someone else will say, I had that same question, but I figured everyone understood. So I wasn't going to ask it. Like, no, nobody understood. It's good she asked it because obviously she wasn't the only one that didn't understand. So, of course, if you're in a class and you have someone else who's going to be the mouth that's going to ask the questions, you're safe because someone else is doing it. But not always does someone else ask your questions. And he's saying, don't be bashful. Don't feel, oh, I must be so stupid here because I'm the only one having this question. Maybe the only one thinking along those lines. Maybe the only one processing that way. Maybe no one else is going to push themselves to ask. So it's always really good to talk up and ask your questions in class. That's what he's saying. Very important point. And conversely, that's to the student. To the teacher, he's saying a short-tempered person can't teach. Because if you're short-tempered, you're going to get very impatient with your student and their questions. So he's encouraging the students to ask and the teachers to have the patience to value and appreciate the questions, to respect the questions, to acknowledge the questions, and to give time and space for them. And he's saying if you're very occupied in your business, you're not going to really be studying. Remember, he said before how important it is to study to really serve God. Now, of course, most of us still have to work for a living, and it does take up a certain amount of our time, but he's saying don't let it take up too much time. And for each person, even as they're actually making career choices, which probably no one at this point is making a career choice, but you could guide other people who might be, you don't want a career choice that takes up so much time that there's no room for life, for relationships, for God. So we have to work, and actually God wants us to work. And actually the Noahide is told very strongly, you're in this world to work, and that's really important. But we don't want the work to be so intensive, to be so all-encompassing that there's no room for God, for people, relationships, love, life. We work, and we need time for all the other things as well. And the final thing he said, which I think is very powerful, actually, for me, it's maybe one of the most powerful of these points, in a place where there's no people, be a man, which means that a lot of times we can look at ourselves and not really feel we have that much to offer. Oh, I'm not so this, I'm not so that. We're sometimes very good at thinking that about ourselves. But sometimes we have to recognize that's true. I'd be very true. But is there anyone else that's going to step up to the plate besides you right now? And especially for Noahides, where you are, you might be the only Noahide for miles around. In a place where there's no people, step up and be that man. Understand, I'm not a leader. I'll be making waves. I don't want anyone to notice me. I don't want anyone to look at me. True. But in a place where there's no people, you got to step up and be that man. And many times, I know for myself, I've been in positions and I'm like, oh, I can't do that. But guess what? If I don't, nobody will. In a place where there's no people, be that man. So whenever in your mind, it's like, no, I don't do that. No, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. Look around. There's no one else. In a place where there's no people, be a man. You've got to step up. You've got to open your mouth. You might know very little, but if you happen to know more than everyone else around you, step up. Lubavitcher Rebbe would say in the Hebrew alphabet, the first letter is Aleph. And he says, if you only know an aleph, like if we translate this expression to the ABCs, if you only know A, the letter A, teach an A. If you know an A and a B, that's awesome. Teach A and B. Oh, all I know is A and B. But there are people that don't know an A or a B. So what you have is very valuable. Teach what you have instead of thinking how much you don't have and therefore shouldn't teach anything. In a place where there's no people, step up and be that man.